Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly out of our own familiar beds and wake up somewhere very different, ancient Persia, where the sun crawls over mud brick rooftops and the desert air is sharp and dry before the day's heat sets in. You blink awake on a woven mat wrapped in linen and realize immediately that you're about to face a long, elaborate morning routine designed not just for comfort, but for spiritual survival. A faint scent of rosewater lingers in the air, though it's likely not coming from a scented candle, but from last night's hand-washing ritual. The stone floor is cold under your toes. You reach for the clay basin by your side, where water glints, a luxury and a necessity. You have a whole list of ablutions ahead of you, and if you think skipping them will help you blend in, think again. The rules are strict, and let's face it, you probably wouldn't survive a week in this empire if you didn't wash like your afterlife depended on it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop your location and what time it is you're listening. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. And let's be honest, Persia isn't exactly next door for any of us. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge through the morning mist, shuffling out of the sleeping area while others begin to stir. In ancient Persia, the start of your day is all about shaking off the previous night, both physically and spiritually. Cleanliness isn't just about health, it's about purity, fortune, and not inviting the cosmic wrath of any unseen, irritable spirits. The Zoroastrian priests down the road would say it's about keeping the chaos at bay, but right now you're mostly worried about the layer of dust already clinging to your feet. First up, the hand-washing ritual. You pour cool water over your hands from a small jug, careful not to contaminate the main basin, a rule drilled into every Persian child by the age of 5. The water trickles over your fingers, carrying away not just dust, but in the minds of your ancestors, invisible spiritual impurities. Modern soap isn't on the menu, but a pinch of wood ash or fine sand acts as a primitive scrub, grinding away the residue of dreams and yesterday's reality. Outside, the city is just waking up. Vendors are setting up their stalls, and you can already hear someone loudly insisting that their bread is fresher than anyone else's. Before you even think about eating though, you need to tend to your face and hair. A bronze mirror, which, let's be honest, reflects more anxiety than clarity, helps you make sure no stray smudges remain from last night's lampsoot. A splash of water across the eyes is said to keep the evil eye at bay, though it mostly keeps you from falling back asleep.
Historians still argue whether this ritual was more about tradition or actual sanitation, but you're not willing to risk it. If you're noble, a servant brings a towel and luxury linen, rough by modern standards but precious here. You dry your hands, face and arms with care, trying not to waste a single drop of the precious water.
Sometimes a bit of rosewater or myrtle-infused oil is dabbed behind the ears, just in case you encounter royalty or your crush on the way to breakfast. Don't get any ideas about skipping this. In Persia, appearing dishevelled was almost as bad as showing up naked. You catch the scent of something strange. Maybe it's the neighbour's experiment with fenugreek perfume again, or the result of last night's lentil stew. Either way, you're suddenly grateful for the hygiene routine. It's the little things, like rinsing your mouth with an herbal infusion after waking. Chewing on a twig of mastic or pomegranate helps freshen the breath, a trick that's been passed down for centuries, and if you're honest, works a lot better than your dentist's mouthwash. Now, if you were especially devout, you'd recite a morning prayer during each step, for synchronizing body and soul, the Zoroastrian Avesta. Holy Book prescribes various washings depending on your purity status. And, believe me, after last night's wild dancing at the fire festival, you need every bit of help you can get. Even the most stubborn historians agree on this point. Ancient Persian mornings were a non-stop contest between dust, tradition, and the hope of not getting a mysterious rash. The bathhouse isn't open yet, but that's for later anyway. Morning hygiene in Persia is an at-home affair, private, repetitive, and taken far more seriously than you'd expect. You finish with a quick clean of your nails using a bronze pick, and if you're lucky enough to have a toothstick, now's the time to scrape off any leftovers from the midnight snack you pretended you didn't have. If you're thinking this is a lot of work, you're not wrong. One contemporary tablet even jokes about nobles who spent longer on their hair than on their prayers. But in a land where sand, superstition, and status collide, you don't dare cut corners. Finally, you wrap yourself in a fresh tunic, avoiding the old one with yesterday's pomegranate stains. The world outside is ready for you, and you're just barely ready for it. As you step into the glare of the Persian morning, the rituals you just survived have done more than cleanse your skin. They've subtly marked you as a respectable member of one of the most storied empires on Earth. Just don't touch your face before lunch. You step out into the dusty morning air, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and adjusting your tunic. Now comes a part of the daily routine that no one dares to skip: the Zoroastrian purity laws. If you thought washing your hands was a chore, you're about to learn the ancient Persian art of taking things to a whole new level of obsessiveness. Don't worry, you're not alone. Almost everyone is, either busy purifying themselves or quietly fretting that they've done it wrong and will be reincarnated as a dung beetle. Zoroastrianism, the dominant faith of the Persian Empire, treats cleanliness like a spiritual shield, not just a personal preference. You glance at the sky, remembering that, according to Zoroastrian tradition, both fire and water are sacred. The catch? You must never ever pollute them. If you so much as drop a crumb in the well, prepare for a lecture from the nearest priest, or worse, from your grandmother. Water is drawn with great care, poured from vessel to vessel, so nothing unclean slips in. Dirty water is carried away and disposed of somewhere far from wells, temples, or any place an eagle might think of as holy real estate. Historians still argue whether this elaborate choreography sprang entirely from religious conviction, or if it was also a clever way to keep the city from smelling like a livestock market in August. Let's be real, no matter your beliefs, nobody wants a stinky house. So, you're taught from childhood that every action has consequences, and nothing brings that home quite like the purity laws. There's even a right and wrong way to clip your nails, wrong being anywhere near a water source. You catch yourself glancing at your own nails, hoping yesterday's cleanup counted. One joke from the period claims, "A careless clip today, 1,000 fleas tomorrow." Not exactly inspiring, but certainly memorable. If you've ever had an overzealous gym teacher, you'll recognize the Zoroastrian priest's attitude. The purity rules are strict, detailed, and enforced with the kind of intensity usually reserved for Olympic tryouts. After using the toilet, which is always placed well away from the living area, you must wash your hands, feet, and sometimes even sprinkle water on your head, lest any demon of filth gets the wrong idea.
And if you so much as step in animal dung, well, prepare for an elaborate purification sequence that rivals the plot twists in your favorite drama series. A favorite of the more anxious Persians is the kusti ritual, the tying and untying of a sacred cord around the waist. Several times a day, while reciting prayers, each motion is a miniature cleansing, a way to ward off invisible nasty.
Some scholars think this ritual doubled as an early fidget toy, something to do with your hands when you're nervous about evil spirits, or worse, your in-laws visiting. But the obsession with purity isn't just about rituals, it's deeply baked into Persian society. Public spaces are arranged with hygiene in mind. Separate shoes for indoors and outdoors, a rule still going strong in many parts of the world. Start here. You keep a set of soft leather slippers just for the home, slipping them on like a badge of respectability. The result? You avoid tracking dirt into the house, but you also develop a low-key fear of mud puddles. Then there's the washing of objects, your cup, your comb, even your writing stylus. Anything that touches your mouth must be rinsed and blessed, or depending on how strict your family is, left in the sun to air out for several hours. There's a lively debate among modern historians about how much of this was practical germ fighting and how much was simply a way to keep everyone busy and mindful. As you watch a neighbour meticulously scrubbing his wooden spoon with a mix of sand and ash, you wonder, was he protecting his soul or just hoping to avoid a bad case of food poisoning? Of course, not everyone follows the rules perfectly. Some Persians, especially the young and the restless, cut corners. The oldest joke in the empire, I'm pure as long as my mother's watching. But even the rebels rarely risk outright filth after all. The last thing you want is to become a cautionary tale forever known as the unclean cousin. At family gatherings, the most dramatic purity laws involve handling the dead. If you so much as brush against a corpse, you're considered ritually polluted and must undergo days of ceremonial washing, clean clothes, and recitations. And don't even think about eating or drinking with your left hand until you're clean again. Some say these rules protected ancient Persians from disease outbreaks. Others point out that nothing ruins a party like someone breaking into a cleansing chant in the middle of dessert. You might think these routines sound exhausting, but you have to admire their logic. With a harsh climate, limited water, and plenty of ways to get sick, the Persians engineered a system where everyone policed each other's hygiene. You're less likely to catch the plague when your neighbours are busy washing their hands every time they so much as pet a goat. All this scrubbing and rinsing has some fun side effects too. Persian poetry is full of references to sparkling hands, sweet-smelling hair, and the joy of slipping into fresh linen after a long bath. Sure, some of it's wishful thinking, but a culture that equates cleanliness with beauty is bound to leave its mark on the world, sometimes literally, if you spill rosewater on your favourite robe. So as you finish your morning ablutions, you're not just cleaner, you're safer, spiritually fortified, and a little smug that you've survived another round of Zoroastrian hygiene boot camp. Just don't forget to wash your feet again before bed. You wander from your tidy room into the wider world of the Persian Empire, where, even under a blazing sun, you find water is both the rarest jewel and the greatest obsession. Here's where your morning ablutions become a logistical puzzle worthy of a game show. How do you stay sparkling clean when water is as precious as gold and just as tricky to keep hold of? The answer is a lesson in scarcity, ingenuity, and sometimes a healthy dose of wishful thinking. Persians didn't just wash, they engineered, schemed, and sometimes outright hoarded water, like their very souls depended on it. Which, in a way, they thought it did. The first thing you notice about Persian hygiene is that the word resourceful doesn't begin to cover it. The empire's great cities, Persepolis, Susa, Pasargadae, are dazzling and bustling, but always under siege from the desert. Every drop of water is contested, protected, and occasionally worshipped. You quickly realize that every aspect of Persian cleanliness has a supporting cast of clever inventions, strict rules, and no small amount of neighbourly spying. Qanats are the real MVPs here. Vast underground channels, dug with mind-bending precision, to deliver water from distant mountain springs to thirsty cities and parched fields. You walk along a shady avenue and spot drowned stone wells every so often. These are the breathing holes of the Qanat. You lean over one and listen. The gentle echo of water far below is as soothing as any lullaby, and for a second you almost want to drop your hands in. But don't even think about it. The penalty for polluting a Qanat is the kind of trouble you don't want, trust me. It's a mark of pride to keep these channels clean. There are stories of entire villages shaming anyone who dared spit or toss a fig stem into the water. Historians still argue whether the original Persian engineers intended qanats primarily for drinking or for irrigation, but everyone agrees they made daily washing possible in cities that otherwise would have had you brushing your teeth with sand. At dawn, water is drawn in painted jugs and carried to courtyards where families divvy up rations, a splash for your face, a handful for your hands, and maybe, if you're lucky, enough left over for a quick rinse of your feet.
Long, lingering baths are reserved for the wealthy or the bold.
Bathing, as it turns out, is more often a festival than a routine, especially when water is short. Most folks learn to make do with what they have. A Persian can clean his hands with 1 cup of water and make it look like a river, says one old saying, and you quickly discover the truth of that. Ingenious little habits pop up everywhere, using damp cloths to scrub the skin, collecting rainwater in special jars, or even catching the early morning dew from palm fronds to dampen your hair.
Still, the desire for cleanliness runs deeper than any water channel. You spot a group of children playing by a communal basin, splashing and laughing, but even their fun has rules. No muddy feet, no toys in the basin, and definitely no drinking the water after a bath. The adults nearby keep a sharp eye out. There's a hint of paranoia in the air, but with so little water to go around, it makes sense. If one person brings dirt into the family supply, everyone's ablutions are doomed. And honestly, so is their dinner. Let's not forget the ingenious ways Persians tried to stretch what water they did have. You see women mixing a little oil or flour into water for hand washing, so the grime clings to the mixture and slides right off. Sometimes ashes or even sand are used for a quick scrub before a final rinse. It's not just clever, it's essential. And if you think you've mastered the art of the Navy shower, imagine doing it with a teacup. Of course, this water consciousness means even architecture is built to encourage thrift. House courtyards are often sloped, so spilled water runs into tiny garden beds, not wasted down the street. Roofs are angled to funnel rainwater into clay jars. It's not just hygiene, it's life support. The truly dedicated even devise games for children, rewarding the one who uses the least water to wash their face. A tradition that probably explains why so many Persian proverbs end with, and that's why he only had 1 eyebrow. Still, not everyone is thrilled with this economy. Travellers, especially Greeks and Egyptians, sometimes mocked Persians for their constant fussing over water. You'd think they were washing away their own shadows, one Greek visitor grumbled, before sneaking off for a dip in the river, but secretly, you're impressed. It takes nerve and brains to keep clean in a place where the nearest river might be 2 days away. One of the oddest quirks you discover, the tradition of borrowed water. When supplies run low, neighbours will sometimes send a child to another house, jug in hand, to request a share. Refusing is a major social faux pas, the kind that gets you left off party lists for a decade. This sharing, of course, comes with a stern reminder not to return the water in any form, except gratitude, and perhaps a tray of sweets. Despite all this careful management, hygiene in the Persian Empire isn't joyless. You find that for all their caution, Persians celebrate water whenever they can. New Year's festivals often begin with a group washing, a symbolic washing away of the previous year's troubles. On rare occasions, when a winter storm floods the city streets, you see young men running outside in nothing but their tunics, arms wide, letting the rain do what the ration jugs cannot. There's laughter, shrieks, and, inevitably, someone getting scolded for tracking mud back inside.
Even the rich aren't immune to water woes. Royal gardens feature intricate fountains and reflecting pools, but these are strictly ornamental. Woe betide the guest caught dunking their feet in the king's lilies. There are stories, half joke, half warning, about a certain prince who was banned from the palace bath for over-enthusiastic splashing.
In the end, everyone, from pauper to prince, learns respect for water, for the struggle to keep clean, and for the peculiar poetic ways the Persians turn scarcity into ritual.
So as you finish your morning routine, you catch your reflection in the shallow basin. Clean enough? Maybe. Clean as a Persian? Now, there's a whole different standard. You wander a little farther, called by the distant echo of laughter and the low hum of friendly arguments drifting on the morning breeze.
Eventually, You find yourself outside one of Persia's greatest social inventions, the public bathhouse, or hammam. Even if you're a little shy about public nudity, there's no escaping the bathhouse isn't just about washing away sweat and dust. It's the beating heart of urban life, a place where you shed your grime, your worries, and if you're unlucky, your dignity during a slippery fall. Entering the hammam is like stepping into a cloud, steam swirling, voices rising and falling, every surface glistening with a fine sheen of moisture and gossip. Inside, the ritual unfolds in carefully choreographed stages. You start in the cool room, where attendants take your outer garments and exchange them for a thin wrap. It's a little drafty, but at least you're not wearing your dusty street clothes. Everyone, from high-ranking courtiers to humble merchants, mingles here. Even in an empire built on rank, the bathhouse levels the playing field, at least until someone brings up taxes. You edge into the next chamber, where warmth seeps into your skin and softens every muscle you didn't know was sore. The floor is slick with water and olive oil, so you walk carefully, channeling your inner gazelle. Bath attendants, known for both their discretion and their sharp eyes, patrol the room with buckets and long-handled ladles, keeping the air just humid enough to make you sweat, but not quite enough to suffocate. The bathhouse experience is not for the rushed. You recline on a smooth stone slab, letting the heat soak through you, while nearby bathers argue over whose cousin makes the best pomegranate stew. Eventually, a cheerful attendant approaches with a rough woolen glove. Think of it as an ancient loofah with a grudge. He begins to scrub, and you wonder, not for the first time, why exfoliation always seems to hurt so much. If it doesn't sting, you're not doing it right, says a grinning elder. You realize you're being initiated into a long tradition of communal discomfort for the sake of beauty. Here's your mainstream fact for the evening. Persian bathhouses were famous across the ancient world, and even the Greeks admitted that the Persians had elevated bathing to an art form. Persian hammams predate their better-known Roman cousins, and many of their innovations, heating water with underground furnaces, steam rooms, even the use of aromatic herbs, were copied far and wide. Modern spas have nothing on this place, except perhaps fewer jokes about uncles who faint in the hot room. The real action is in the warm room, where people linger, telling stories, making deals, and on occasion singing old songs. You soon learn that the bathhouse is where news travels fastest, faster than a camel, faster than a royal courier. Want to know who's in trouble at court, whose daughter is marrying whom, or which merchant is importing dodgy olive oil? Listen in the hammam, and you'll be caught up before you're even halfway through your second rinse. But it's not all idle chatter. Some bathers take the art of massage to extremes, enlisting strong-armed attendants to stretch, pull, and occasionally walk on their back. One particularly memorable session finds you watching a neighbour being folded like a piece of parchment, emitting groans that echo off the tiled walls.
It's good for the spirit, someone assures you. Historians still argue whether these massages had actual medical benefits or were simply a Persian way of bonding through mutual suffering.
Of course, there are a few quirky customs. Some bathhouses feature small pools filled with rose petals or slices of cucumber, intended to soften the skin and mask the less charming aromas of so many sweaty humans in close quarters.
On certain holy days, special mineral salts are offered, reputed to cure everything from aching joints to romantic disappointment.
One fringe tidbit, it's said that if you whisper your troubles into the steam, they'll rise up and drift away, at least until your nosy neighbour repeats them at the market.
After the main wash, you sit in the cooling room, sipping lightly flavoured water and admiring your newly scrubbed skin. If you're noble or just lucky, you get a quick dusting of perfumed powder, applied with a soft brush. For everyone else, a brisk rub down with a rough towel does the trick. Clothing is donned slowly, almost reverently, as if you're wrapping yourself in a new identity, a fresh start, at least until tomorrow's dirt finds you again. Not everyone loves the hammam, of course. Some find the forced socializing a little much. preferring the solitude of home. But most Persians, even the grumpy ones, find themselves drawn to the bathhouse sooner or later. There are even children's stories about mischievous spirits who sneak into the hammam to steal away your dirt, only to be driven off by the smell of old socks left in the changing room. So you leave the bathhouse feeling lighter, cleaner, and just a little bit closer to your neighbours. Your skin tingles, your muscles relax, and for one brief shining moment, you feel like a prince, or at least a well-bathed commoner. You step back onto the street, hair damp, body fresh, and face flushed from steam. You're ready to take on the world, or at the very least, the next dusty hour in the heart of ancient. Stepping back into the bright Persian sunlight, you find yourself marvelling at just how soft and clean your skin feels after that communal scrubbing in the hammam. But you quickly realise that the real secret to a Persian's lasting cleanliness isn't just about water or steam. It's about the simple, ingenious materials used every single day, natural soaps and ancient suds that have stood the test of centuries, with a few recipes so odd you might think someone was pulling your leg. In this world, getting your hands dirty is just the first step toward getting really truly clean. Persian soap isn't exactly what you'll find in your modern bathroom. There's no neat bar, no squeaky clean lemon scent, and absolutely no rows of pastel-coloured bottles. Instead, you see hunks of gritty ash, lumps of clay, bowls of crushed herbs, and the ever-present aroma of oil and smoke. The most common base is wood ash, mixed with a little olive oil or animal fat, an ancient formula that, when lathered with water and a bit of elbow grease, creates a surprisingly effective cleanser. A mainstream historical fact for your night: this type of basic soap has been traced in Persian archaeological digs to over 2,500 years ago, long before most people in Europe knew what a bathtub was for. For the poorer folk, plain clay does the trick. A handful of soft greyish earth is scooped from riverbanks or dry wadi beds, kneaded with a little water, and smeared over the hands and arms. It works a bit like a mud mask at a modern spa, drawing out oil, dirt, and according to some, any lingering bad luck. If you're worried about ruining your nails, don't be. The grittiness also works as a nail cleaner, as any Persian child will cheerfully show you after a day's play. The truly adventurous experiment with saponin-rich plants, soapwort, fenugreek, and the oddly named Persian berry are favourites. Crush a handful of leaves, mix with water, and you get a gentle lather. Nature's answer to body wash. Some herbalists claim these concoctions leave your skin glowing. Others say they just leave you smelling like yesterday's salad. Historians still argue whether these green mixtures were reserved for nobles or used by everyone. But either way, if you've ever doubted the cleaning power of weeds, ancient Persia would set you straight. Of course, there are quirks. One popular soap is made from sour milk mixed with flour and a little sand. It sounds like a recipe for a failed dessert, but it's believed to polish the skin and keep it smooth under the harsh Persian sun. If you ask the elders, they'll tell you stories of legendary beauties who owed their charm to regular milk and flour scrubs. Fringe tidbit: some young men even wash their hair with wine lees, the sediment left after fermenting wine, which gives their curls a certain memorable aroma. Whether this was the height of fashion or just the result of a dare is still up for debate. And what about fragrances? Even after a proper wash, the Persians are keen on masking any trace of sweat with natural perfumes, sprigs of myrtle, crushed rose petals, and the famous attar of roses are rubbed into hair, beards, and clothing. It's both a luxury and a necessity. After all, nobody wants to smell like an overcooked onion when greeting the Queen Mother. Scent isn't just for the living, either. Special incense is burned for the dead, in the belief that the right fragrance eases the soul's journey. As usual, scholars can't quite agree. Did the average citizen ever get rosewater, or was that just a royal treat? Laundry, of course, becomes a whole production. You spot groups of women along riverbanks, pounding clothes with smooth stones, scrubbing with clay, and rinsing in the cold current. It's noisy, social, and slightly competitive. There's even a running joke about the clay-handed laundress, whose grip is so strong she could squeeze a chicken into soup without breaking a sweat. Laundry day is also rumour day. Somehow, the soap suds always bubble up the latest scandal before the garments come clean. Despite the hard work, there's a playfulness to these routines. Children pelt each other with blobs of foam, giggling as mothers pretend to scold. Old men claim that a truly clean hand is one that can flick a fly off your neighbour's nose without leaving a mark. Rituals evolve. A quick sprinkle of rose water on the wrists before a big meeting, or a dusting of fine clay before a wedding for luck and good complexion.
If you think your beauty regimen is complicated, you haven't tried juggling a basket of clay balls and a bucket of sour milk while dodging goats. One practical note, with so many natural ingredients in play, allergic reactions are a real possibility. Some Persians swear by pomegranate peel as a soap substitute, others avoid it like the plague after one too many rashes.
If your skin suddenly turns red, there's always a herbalist nearby, ready to prescribe a cooling ointment, usually with a confident, "This time it'll work, I promise." Historians love to debate whether Persian skin truly was as flawless as the poets claim, or if everyone simply hid their blotches with creative scarf draping. So, as you rub the last traces of ash and clay from your hands, you start to appreciate the subtle genius of Persian hygiene. It's not just about being clean, it's about using what you have, turning the ordinary into something special, and sharing the secret with the next person in line. By the end of your bath, you realize you might never look at a mud puddle or a kitchen herb quite the same way. And as the sun climbs higher, you tuck away your makeshift soap, already looking forward to the next excuse to get gloriously, deliberately dirty, all in the name of getting clean.
You step into the shade of a bustling bazaar, feeling the last traces of clay and rosewater fade from your skin, when a silver flash catches your eye. A merchant holds up a delicate mirror, its polished surface bright as a midday oasis. You spot your own face, and perhaps more critically your hair.
In Persia, hair isn't just an afterthought. It's a daily statement of status, piety, and sometimes sheer willpower. Here begins your next adventure, navigating the ancient Persian world of hairstyles and beard games, where every curl, braid and whisker tells a story. Let's be honest, you can wash all you want, but if you leave your hair sticking up like a startled goat, you'll be the talk of the town before your feet even touch the market cobbles. Noblemen pride themselves on carefully maintained beards, long, oiled, and sometimes adorned with beads or little golden rings, especially if you're feeling festive or just showing off for the neighbour's daughter. The mainstream historical fact, Persian kings, especially from the Achaemenid dynasty, set the trend with their impressive curled beards, so iconic that sculptors carved them in endless rows on the palace walls. The royal beard isn't just facial hair, it's a public monument. For everyday folk, grooming is just as serious, if less dramatic. You see men combing their beards with little wooden picks, applying a mixture of almond oil and, if you're lucky, a few drops of imported myrrh or frankincense. The oil doesn't just tame wild hares, it supposedly keeps away lice and even evil spirits, though historians still argue whether beard oil recipes were more medicinal or just wishful thinking. You sidle over to the women's stalls where the real artistry unfolds. Persian women favour long, shining hair, parted in the centre and braided into intricate patterns, some so elaborate they could double as fishing nets in a pinch. Fringe tidbit: during weddings, it's customary to tuck tiny sprigs of sweet basil or hyacinth into braids, said to bring luck and keep away jealous glances. There's even a children's song that claims, "The longer your braid, the sweeter your dreams." Though, to be fair, that might just be an ancient marketing ploy by the brush sellers. Children, meanwhile, get their heads fussed over by mothers with a mission. Any sign of tangles, and out come the combs, fingers, and sometimes stern warnings about turning into a lion cub. Clean, neatly parted hair is a sign of care and respect. Let your hair go wild, and people will whisper that you're too busy chasing goats to wash up. In noble households, servants are tasked with combing and oiling their master's hair each morning, sometimes with enough vigour to make even the bravest soldier wince. The beard debate is eternal, long and stately or neat and trimmed. In some eras bushy beards rule, in others short and shaped is all the rage. You overhear a pair of scholars bickering over which style pleases the gods more, a debate that ends as most do, with both agreeing that only a fool neglects his whiskers. One eccentric uncle claims his beard is so powerful it once frightened away a prowling hyena. Nobody quite believes him, but nobody wants to challenge the beard either. Of course, not all grooming is glamorous. Occasionally, a local barber, part stylist, part amateur surgeon, sets up shop in a quiet alley. Here you sit, trusting your locks and dignity to a man wielding a bronze razor and a chunk of soap. If you're lucky, you get a close shave and a sprinkle of rosewater. If not, well, there's always a scarf to hide the results. Historians still argue whether Persian barbers had formal training or just learned on the fly, though the occasional yelp from a customer suggests the latter. Hair wasn't only about vanity. In times of mourning, Persians would sometimes let their hair grow wild, or even cut it short, as a sign of grief. A victorious soldier might tie his hair up with a coloured ribbon, while a disgraced official might be forced to shave off his beard entirely, a punishment so severe that it's still whispered about in jokes. There's even a fringe legend that losing your beard meant losing your luck at gambling for a year and a day. You spot a young scribe using a reed pen as a makeshift hair stick, jotting notes while his top knot holds steady. Across the street, a group of elders debate the merits of beeswax versus almond oil, their voices rising in the late morning heat. A merchant passes by with an improbable pompadour, clearly aiming to make an impression on anyone within a mile radius. By midday, the sun has turned hair oil into a shimmering glaze. You catch a glimpse of your own reflection again, and wonder if you measure up to ancient Persia's high standards. But here's the secret. The real Persian grooming tradition is about pride, community, and the gentle teasing of anyone who shows up with a bad hair day. So you tuck in a stray lock, smooth your beard, if you have one, and step out with a little extra spring in your step. In Persia, you're never just washed. You're always ready for your close-up. With your hair tamed and your beard, if you're blessed with one glistening with almond oil, you wander into the market square and are immediately swept into a cloud of competing aromas. Spices, bread, livestock, and somewhere underneath it all, the unmistakable tang of sweat. Welcome to the real challenge of ancient Persian hygiene, scent, and the art of deodorizing. If you thought staying clean was tough, try staying fragrant in a place where a desert afternoon can make even the cleanest person wilt like a day-old lotus. Persians took smell very seriously. Perfume isn't just a luxury, it's a daily armor, a mark of civility, and sometimes the only thing standing between you and social exile. Rosewater is the undisputed favorite. Vendors sell it by the vial, dabbed onto wrists, splashed in hair, even spritzed onto clothes, before a big meeting. It's so prized that a single drop might cost as much as a day's wage for a labourer. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Persian perfumers were considered the best in the ancient world, and their distillation methods, especially for rose oil, became the blueprint for later perfume capitals like Grasse and Damascus. You can always spot someone freshly rose-watered. There's a subtle gleam to their skin, a faint sheen to their hair, and a whiff of flowers that follows them like a blessing. But rose isn't the only weapon in the Persian scent arsenal. Lavender, saffron, musk, myrrh, cinnamon, and even frankincense make regular appearances in oil blends and powders. Some families pass down secret recipes for homemade deodorants, made with everything from ground coriander to dried lemon peel. There's a popular joke that you haven't truly entered adulthood until you've tried at least one perfume that made the local dogs sneeze.
Fringe tidbit. One old method for fighting body odor is to rub your underarms with crushed pomegranate skin, which, thanks to its tannins, dries the skin and theoretically keeps you fresher for longer. Another, a bit more questionable, is to tuck fragrant herbs under your tunic, a trick borrowed from travelling priests and weary soldiers alike.
I was placing a sprig of basil behind the ear to ward off not just stink but bad dreams. Historians still argue whether these folk deodorants genuinely worked or just gave everyone an excuse to carry extra snacks.
Then there's the matter of sweat itself. In the summer heat, staying dry is an uphill battle. Wealthier Persians sometimes change their linen shirts several times a day, luxury most can't afford. The rest of the populace gets creative, dusting themselves with fine powders made from chalk, rice, or even dried rose petals to soak up moisture. On the hottest days, you'll see people fanning themselves with palm leaves or retreating into the shade, doing their best to avoid the midday meltdown. The truly desperate splash cold water from the nearest basin and simply hope for the best. There's also an almost spiritual dimension to Persian scents. Incense wafts through temples and homes, not just to mask unpleasantness, but to purify the air and please the spirits.
Lighting a stick of sandalwood before prayers is as much about banishing bad energy as it is about freshening the room. Some say the smell draws angels closer.
Others think it just keeps nosy neighbours from noticing last night's garlic-heavy dinner. Curiously, the role of scent crosses into medicine too. Herbalists mix fragrant salves, claiming they can cure everything from headaches to heartbreak. Almond oil, steeped with flowers, is a favourite for soothing sunburns. On festival days, streets are awash with competing fragrances. Some lovely, others bordering on eye-watering. You quickly learn to smile politely, even as your nostrils twitch. But not everyone agrees on the best way to deodorize. Scholars still argue whether rose water should go on the wrists or behind the ears, and whether men should use musk or stick with saffron. Some old-timers mutter that too much perfume is a sign of laziness, a way to cover up poor hygiene. Yet no one dares skip it before an audience with nobility or a romantic encounter. You soon pick up the customs, a dab here, a sprinkle there, and a discreet check to make sure you're not overpowering. There's an art to layering scents, never too strong, never too faint, always hinting at cleanliness. The wrong perfume, however, can earn you a nickname that sticks for decades. Remember Uncle Stinkweed? The kids whisper, and suddenly you resolve to double up on basil, just in case. So you move through the Persian day, feeling equal parts fresh and fragrant, wrapped in a cloud of history and rose petals. By the end of it, you're not just clean, you're a walking bouquet, one whiff away from immortality in the poetry of ancient Persia. You head home from the market, your tunic fluttering lightly with each step, and find yourself face to face with a challenge that still strikes dread into the heart of every household laundry day. Persian clothing is all about clean linen, crisp folds, and artful layers, but maintaining that look is a perpetual battle against dust, sweat, and the relentless curiosity of neighborhood goats. Now you see why the wise always keep a spare set hidden for special occasions. If you thought your modern laundry routine was a hassle, wait until you've scrubbed your robe with river clay while fending off a camel trying to eat your sleeve. Clothes in ancient Persia are more than just protection from the elements, they're statements of identity, status, and sometimes pure defiance. Linen is the most popular choice for undergarments and tunics, cool in the summer and surprisingly warm when layered for winter. Nobles might flaunt brightly dyed wools and shimmering silks, but for most folks, fresh linen, white, blue, or natural, means you're doing all right. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Persian artisans became so skilled at weaving linen and cotton that their fabrics were prized as far as Greece and India, sparking a textile craze that lasted centuries. You notice something peculiar about Laundry Day in Persia. It's equal parts cleaning and community theatre. The riverbank becomes a stage where groups of women, and occasionally some proud men, pound clothes on smooth stones, trading stories, recipes, and the occasional pointed joke about whose husband makes the biggest mess. There's a competitive spirit too. Everyone wants their linen to come out brightest, and because soap is a luxury, most people scrub with clay, ash, or even rough river sand, creating a lather that's gritty but effective. If you find a particularly greasy stain, say from lamp oil or spilled stew, there's always an aunt who knows a secret trick involving lemon peel or the juice of wild sorrel.
The oddest tradition. Laundry is sometimes timed to the moon. Some swear that washing under a waxing crescent ensures whiter garments, while others avoid full moons entirely, blaming them for every lost sock.
Historians still argue whether these customs had any basis in practicality, or if they're just ancient excuses for missing buttons. Laundry also has its dangers. Drop your robe in the river, and you'd better be quick to fish it out. Those currents have claimed more than one fine tunic. Gossip moves almost as fast by midday. Everyone knows who's got a stubborn mud stain, who managed to splash a priest, and who's using last season's dye colours. There's a running joke about the blue-legged merchant whose hasty dye job left him with permanently azure ankles for a week. Drying clothes is another challenge, especially in city courtyards where dust swirls at the slightest breeze. People hang garments on long wooden poles, or even on the horns of patient oxen, though this sometimes backfires when a bored animal wanders off, trailing socks behind it like a parade. Children dart among the lines, playing tag, and it's not unusual to find a sleepy cat curled up on a still damp tunic, daring anyone to disturb its nap. Of course, all this scrubbing isn't just about vanity. There are deeply practical reasons behind Persian laundry routines. In a climate where sweat and dust are constants, clean linen helps prevent rashes, insect bites, and a host of mysterious illnesses. Some houses keep a dedicated wash basin for soaking, especially soiled items. But you're warned never to mix water from laundry with drinking supplies, a lesson enforced by stern grandmothers, and occasionally a lecture from the nearest Zoroastrian priest. The fringe tidbit: some families believe that a lucky shirt washed only on special days and never with the rest of the laundry can ward off bad fortune and bring good dreams. One famous folk tale tells of a baker who wore the same lucky apron to every festival, swearing that as long as it was scrubbed with lavender once a year, his bread would never burn. If you ever find yourself feeling overwhelmed, remember this: Persian Laundry Day is also an excuse to slow down and socialize. Over the swish of water and the slap of linen, friendships are forged, matches are made, and grievances add. It's not uncommon for proposals or business deals to be settled mid-scrub, with the cleanest shirt often ending up with the best bargain. Historians still argue over the origin of some particularly creative stain-fighting recipes. Did pomegranate juice really get out ink marks? Was goat's milk good for bloodstains, or just an excuse for another trip to the neighbour's barn? Some say we'll never know. Others are convinced the best secrets are still waiting at the bottom of the wash tub. By sunset, the air is filled with the fresh scent of sun-dried linen, a trace of lavender, and the satisfied laughter of a job well done.
You slip into your cleanest tunic, smooth the wrinkles, and if you're smart, thank the laundry gods you didn't lose another sock to the river. You step out feeling light, crisp, and just a little proud.
In ancient Persia, there's nothing quite like the confidence of truly fresh clothes. Your linen tunic crackles with the sun's warmth, and you flash a clean smile to a passing neighbour, only to realise that in ancient Persia, even your teeth are a matter of public scrutiny. Welcome to the strange, surprising world of Persian dentistry and mouth magic, where the quest for a dazzling smile goes hand in hand with the quest for a healthy soul. You might think your electric toothbrush is a modern marvel, but here, people have been working on their grins for centuries with tools and tricks that are as ingenious as they are, occasionally questionable. Start your morning mouth ritual with the ubiquitous toothstick, a slender twig from the Salvadora persica, pomegranate, or even walnut tree chewed at one end to make a natural brush. It's your ancient alternative to plastic bristles and minty paste, and fun fact, these twigs contain natural antimicrobial agents that freshen breath and keep cavities at bay. Historians still argue whether these chew sticks were passed down from India or invented locally, but either way, you soon master the art of chewing, scrubbing, and spitting without offending the neighbours. There's more to it than sticks. Herbal rinses made from mint, myrrh, or crushed coriander are popular for mouth cleansing and doubling as breath fresheners before important meetings or family feasts. You rinse and spit, feeling a tingle that's half clean, half please let this not stain my teeth green. For stubborn toothaches, people rely on remedies that sound half medicinal, half magical. Applying a dab of opium mixed with honey to an aching molar, or tucking a clove under the tongue for good luck and fresher breath.
Fringe tidbit, one particularly quirky practice is using finely ground sheep bone mixed with salt as a tooth powder. If the sheep knew, they'd probably keep their jaws clenched tight, but the powder works mostly. Some old poems joke about lovers wooed by salt white teeth, though nobody mentions the risk of an accidental sneeze. And don't forget the ever popular charcoal, used not just for cleaning teeth but for blackening gums, a practice once believed to make smiles look even brighter. Mouth hygiene is a group activity too. After meals, entire families line up to wash their hands and rinse their mouths together. Children are taught to gargle with fresh water, spitting discreetly into the garden to avoid the wrath of any spirits living in the drains. A well-kept mouth is considered a sign of respect, not just for oneself, but for the gods and one's community. You learn quickly that sharing a meal is also sharing responsibility for your breath. But the story of Persian dental care isn't just about the tools, it's about the tales. There's a famous one about a merchant who claimed he could tell a person's fortune just by reading the patterns in their teeth. Skeptics still debate whether he had real skill or just a talent for creative storytelling. But either way, he made a tidy profit before retiring to a life of tooth-reading consultations. Professional dentists do exist, though you might hesitate to call on one unless absolutely necessary. Their kit includes bronze tweezers, rough files, and a selection of herbs meant to numb the pain. A handy trio if you're brave enough to sit through an extraction. If not, you can always try the old standby, simply waiting for the offending tooth to fall out, then tossing it into the nearest river and making a wish for a stronger replacement. Historians still debate the ingredients in ancient Persian toothpaste recipes. Some say it was all about dried mint and rock salt. Others swear by mixtures, including bitter almond, honey, and even crushed pearls for those who could afford the luxury. Whether these blends cleaned teeth or simply wore them down is an open question, but you can't help but admire the dedication to oral hygiene. Dentistry in Persia isn't all function, it's also a little fashion. Some nobles dye their teeth with natural colours or adorn them with tiny gold caps just to stand out in a crowd. The latest trend, polishing teeth with a piece of wool until they shine like little moon. No matter your station, a clean, cared-for mouth is essential, and woe to the courtier caught with spinach between their teeth during a royal audience. You finish your morning mouth routine feeling remarkably fresh and a little smug. After all, you've survived Persian dentistry without a single wince or yelp. And as you smile your way through the day, you remember, in ancient Persia, a great grin might just open more doors than a silver key. Midday stretches across Persia like a silken scarf, sunlight bouncing off polished courtyards and swirling over the wide open plazas. As you step out, shield your eyes, and feel the first tingle of heat on your arms and face, you're reminded that Persian hygiene isn't just about what's clean,
It's about survival under a fierce, relentless sun. Welcome to the chapter of skincare, sun and the little tricks Persians used to protect, pamper, and sometimes improvise their way through each blazing day. If you're expecting rows of fancy creams and delicate bottles, think again. Persian skincare is earthy, practical, and more often than not, something you'd also find in the pantry. The foundation of every beauty routine: oil, almond oil, olive oil, and sometimes sesame oil, all whipped up and massaged into the skin to create a soft barrier against dust and drying winds. It's not just cosmetic, it's crucial. In a land where moisture disappears faster than a rumour, oil is liquid gold. For extra protection, you might reach for wild pomegranate or melon seeds, ground into a fine powder and dabbed on sun-exposed skin. Some families swear by a homemade sunscreen, a paste of barley flour and sour milk, smeared generously across noses and foreheads. You may look a bit ghostly and smell faintly like breakfast, but it keeps the worst sunburns at bay. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Persian physicians, like Avicenna, wrote entire treatises on the benefits of plant-based oils for skin, a tradition echoed in the world's first pharmacopoeias. There's no shortage of home remedies for rough skin. After a windy day, you might rub mashed cucumber or fig over your cheeks for cooling relief. For cracked heels or elbows, it's beeswax blended with a touch of date syrup, sometimes with a pinch of ground saffron if you're feeling fancy. Historians still argue whether these salves were passed down from wise women or imported from India, along with exotic spices, but the results speak for themselves at least, if you don't mind the occasional sticky sleeve. Fringe tidbit: a favourite among Persian children is the mud mask challenge, where kids coat their faces with river clay and let it dry, claiming the first to crack a smile loses. Supposedly, this also wards off evil spirits and boredom. If you thought beauty routines were boring, you haven't seen a group of kids giggling behind matching mud masks. Sun care is serious business here. Wide-brimmed felt hats and linen veils are standard issue for travellers, farmers, and anyone with a lick of sense. Still, you're bound to get a little pink now and then. The cure? A splash of vinegar and rosewater, patted gently over the burn, followed by a nap in the shade. Doctor's orders, according to grandmothers everywhere. Some folk insist that a handful of fresh basil leaves rubbed on the skin cools a fever. Others just head for the darkest corner of the nearest wine cellar. You soon realize Persian attitudes toward beauty and skin are delightfully down to earth. Fair skin is admired, yes, but a healthy, glowing look matters more than porcelain perfection. Farmers and tradespeople wear their tans with pride. City dwellers might aim for a paler style, but no one escapes the sun entirely. In fact, tales are told of a nobleman who tried to avoid the sun for an entire year, only to emerge so pale his friends thought he'd turned into a ghost. Whether the story's true or just a warning about missing too many picnics, historians still debate. The beauty of Persian skincare isn't just its practicality, it's the ritual. A family rubs oil into one another's shoulders after a bath. Friends share jars of scented salve at festivals. Elders pass down recipes with a wink and a warning. Don't let the goat eat the pomegranate seeds first. Every ingredient carries a story, every routine a memory. It's communal, playful, and oddly reassuring, especially on days when the sun refuses to show any mercy. Nightfall brings its own remedies. You sit on the rooftop, a gentle breeze cooling your skin, and apply a fresh layer of oil before bed. The stars above Persia seem to wink in approval. There's a joke that the only thing softer than a Persian's skin is their pillow after a night of rosewater balm. You drift into sleep feeling protected, pampered, and maybe just a little bit glowing. Proof that sometimes the simplest ingredients really are the most magical. The midday sun eases into late afternoon, bringing with it the scents of roasting grains, sizzling meats and fresh-baked bread wafting through narrow streets. Your stomach rumbles, but before you can indulge, you notice something. Every Persian meal, whether it's a royal banquet or a street vendor's snack, comes with its own set of hygiene rituals. Ancient Persia may have been famous for its feasts, but food hygiene and the little quirks around safe stacking played just as big a part in daily survival as spices or storytelling. The first thing you spot is the washing station, a jug of water perched on a carved stand with a shallow basin beneath. Before anyone touches a morsel, hands are carefully rinsed, sometimes even scrubbed with a pinch of salt or sand for stubborn dirt. In noble homes, a servant pours water over your fingers, making sure it runs away from the bowl, so no used water touches clean hands. It's a ceremony with Here's your mainstream historical fact. Persian banquets set the gold standard for hospitality and cleanliness, inspiring future empires from the Greeks to the Ottomans to imitate their meticulous mealtime rituals. But you don't need a palace to eat clean. Market stalls offer handcloths or little bowls of scented water, and if you look closely you'll see street vendors checking their fingernails before serving dates or pastries.
While the Zoroastrian purity laws shape much of this fuss, you sense a practical reason too, with dust swirling, flies buzzing, and sand lurking in every corner. A little soap and water goes a long way to keeping food safe.
Still, historians argue whether these routines genuinely protected diners from illness, or if they were mostly about impressing guests. Meals are a social event, and etiquette is everything. You eat with your right hand, always using the left, is an insult and a sure way to earn side eyes from every direction. At bigger gatherings, you sit in neat rows, sharing wide platters of rice, lamb, fresh greens, and fruits. One quirky tidbit: some hosts sprinkle a line of salt or dried mint around a serving bowl, claiming it wards off both evil spirits and over-eager fingers. Food is served in courses, with pauses in between for more hand-washing or wiping with clean linen cloths. You quickly learn to keep a personal napkin tucked at your waist. There's even a playful superstition that wiping your mouth before dessert brings bad luck, so most people opt for a quick rinse instead. If you make a mess, dripping honey on your sleeve for example, don't worry. There's always an aunt with a ready solution involving a splash of vinegar or a crumb of old bread to mop it up. Beverages are another story. Cups and pitchers are shared, but only after a careful wipe with a fresh cloth. Some families keep special cups just for guests, stored high and dust-free between feasts. Water is always poured fresh, and the clever design of Persian pitchers, with a long, narrow spout, means you can sip without lips ever touching the rim. Historians still argue if this was for sanitation or just clever showmanship, but it works. Children are taught from a young age to respect the ritual of eating. Before every meal, hands and mouths are checked. If you skip the pre-snack wash, expect a gentle scold or a sprinkle of cold water on the back of your neck. On festival days, you might see entire lines of children parading to the courtyard fountain, giggling as they scrub up for a shared feast. If food hygiene is an art, then Persian kitchens are the studio. Cooking surfaces are kept spotless, with separate boards for bread, meat, and sweets. Utensils are rinsed after every use, sometimes dried in the sun for purification. The truly cautious add a pinch of salt to storage jars, believing it keeps out both spoilage and mischief. You'll hear stories of grandmothers who never lost a loaf to mould, thanks to their secret blend of herbs and prayers. But not all is perfect. There are tales of unlucky cooks who dropped a spoon or sneezed at the wrong moment, only to be chased from the kitchen, lest the spirits claim the stew. One fringe practice: some Persians would burn a bit of bread before a big meal, letting the smoke cleanse the space and drive out unseen threats. Historians still argue whether these smoky rituals really made food safer or just tastier by accident. So you savour each bite, feeling the crispness of clean fingers, the coolness of fresh water, and the reassurance that, here in ancient Persia, eating isn't just about taste, it's about trust, tradition, and the unspoken promise that your next snack won't send you running for the herbalist. By the time you wipe your hands for the last time and step away from the table, you realize, in a land where hospitality is a sacred art, a clean meal is as much a gift as the finest silk. As you slip out into the twilight, belly full and fingers still tingling from a final rinse, you realize that, for all their fastidiousness, ancient Persians faced a universal foe: pests. Lice, fleas, bedbugs, and the occasional mystery critter don't ask about the jumping beetles. We're determined to turn every home, palace, and market stall into their own playground. Hygiene in Persia wasn't just about water and rosewater, it was a daily battle against the tiny invaders that thrived in a warm, bustling empire. The battle begins at dawn, with combs and powders. Every household keeps a stash of fine-toothed wooden combs, tools so essential they're passed down like family heirlooms. Parents line up children and start the daily inspection. Part grooming, part pest control, part early morning comedy routine.
Don't squirm, or the fleas will just laugh at you. An older brother teases as a younger sibling makes faces in protest. The ritual is so ingrained that it makes its way into folk songs and jokes. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Persian combs, often carved from boxwood or ivory, have been unearthed in ancient graves, a testament to their importance and to just how long people have been waging the pest war.
But combing alone won't cut it. Enter the powders. Finely crushed herbs, chalk, and even clay are dusted onto hair and clothing, creating a slippery, inhospitable terrain for lice and fleas. Some families swear by lavender or wild rue for their insect-repelling powers. The more adventurous add powdered pomegranate peel or ground bay leaves to the mix. There's even a fringe tidbit that dried rose petals, when crumbled into bedding, not only deter pests, but bring good dreams. A claim you'd like to believe, even if it's mostly an excuse to keep everything smelling sweet. Clothing is shaken and inspected before bedtime, and mats and blankets are aired out in the sun as often as possible. Elders remind you, the sun is the best pest controller. On laundry day, it's not uncommon to see rows of bedding flapping in the breeze, with the whole family on lookout for any suspicious scurry. Some say that hanging blankets at dawn, before the heat sets in, chases away bugs faster, a tradition that historians still argue about, unsure if it's based on science, superstition, or just hopeful thinking. For the truly determined, there are lice salons, informal gatherings, where friends or family members search each other's hair under the best available light, chatting and laughing as they go. It's a mix of grooming, gossip, and team sport, and nobody escapes the careful scrutiny of a grandmother on a mission. The loser of the day's pest hunt might be teased, but never shamed. Everyone knows that, sooner or later, even the cleanest heads get unlucky.
Bedbugs are another story.
Beds and mats are frequently dusted with a sprinkle of ash or fine sand, believed to deter crawlers from getting comfortable. Some Persian households keep bundles of aromatic herbs tucked under pillows and mattresses, which serve double duty as air fresheners and bug repellents. On chilly nights, the tang of rue and mint floats through the sleeping quarters, soothing and practical at once. Pets, yes, even the family goat or a beloved songbird, are not spared. Their fur or feathers get a dose of herbal dusting, and the occasional careful combing. There's even a running joke about the best groomed goat in Persepolis, though the goat himself seems largely indifferent to his reputation. Despite these efforts, the pests sometimes win. When outbreaks hit, communities rally together, boiling clothes and bedding in great vats and sharing recipes for ever stronger powders. Children may be treated to a vinegar rinse, their protest ringing out for all to hear. Historians still debate whether these mass delousing efforts truly kept epidemics at bay, or simply gave everyone an excuse for an extra bath. The most extreme solution, reserved for desperate times, is to burn infested mats and bedding outright. It's a costly last resort, and one that usually prompts a collective sigh and sometimes a group song to chase away the disappointment and frustration. In the end, everyone knows it's a never-ending cycle. Clean one day, scratch the next, goes the saying. As darkness settles and you climb onto your sleeping mat, you can't help but be grateful for the daily vigilance and all those little rituals, combs, powders, sunlight, and a family united in the great, eternal pest patrol. You pull your blanket up, sniff the faint scent of herbs, and drift off, trusting that, at least for tonight, you've earned a mostly peaceful sleep.
The desert stars glitter overhead as you gather your pack and set out along the legendary Royal Road, heart pounding with anticipation. Or maybe that's just your feet already aching at the thought of miles to go before breakfast. Persian life isn't all city comforts and careful routines. It's also about enduring long marches, dangerous journeys, and the chaos of war. Here, the rules of hygiene are rewritten by necessity, and everyone from soldier to merchant learns how to stay clean, or at least less filthy, while living out of a saddlebag. The Royal Road is the backbone of the empire, stretching for over 1,000 miles and linking distant provinces with the capital at Susa. Caravan after caravan snakes along its packed earth, and with them a moving civilization of traders, travellers, priests, and of course armies. Out here, water is even scarcer than in the city, and you quickly learn the value of every drop. Most travellers carry a personal water skin tightly sealed and guarded like treasure. Washing your hands is a luxury. Washing your face, a miracle. If you're hoping for a bath, well, let's just say, may the gods send rain soon. Yet the Persians, ever resourceful, have tricks up their sleeve. One mainstream historical fact, the Achaemenid army, famed for its discipline, maintained strict hygiene even in the field. Commanders set aside time for soldiers to wash, comb hair, and check for pests, an early form of inspection. Fresh linen is prized, even when it means hauling spare shirts through dust and battle. At camp, soldiers scrub hands and faces with sand or fine gravel, using the grit to scrape away sweat, grime, and any lingering bad luck. Not quite as soothing as a hammam, but effective in a pinch.
Meals on the road bring new challenges. Without dedicated washing stations, travellers use whatever they can. A handful of sand, a splash from a shared canteen, sometimes just a brisk wipe on a cleanish corner of a cloak. Cutlery is rare. You eat with your fingers, always mindful to keep your right hand cleaner than the left. There's a constant low-level debate among seasoned road warriors. Does sand or ash work better for desert washing? Historians still argue whether these gritty substitutes actually prevented sickness or just moved the dirt around. Fringe tidbit, Persian soldiers, and even merchants, sometimes rubbed their feet with wine or vinegar before marching, believed to toughen skin and stave off blisters. Some even wrapped toes with bits of wool soaked in oil to avoid chafing. If you spot a particularly smug-looking officer, it's probably because he snagged the last of the perfumed oil rations. Nothing lifts morale like not smelling like last week's cheese. Travelling women face their own challenges. Extra veils and scarves double as makeshift towels and dust masks. Clever traders tuck rose petals into their linen, so that even after days on the road, a faint floral scent lingers. The truly prepared carry tiny pouches of crushed mint and lavender dabbed behind ears before entering a new city. There's a popular story about a noble woman whose bag of scent sachets became more valuable than gold when the caravan ran out of water. Historians still debate whether this is romantic exaggeration or a cautionary tale about travelling with unwashed companions. And what about war? Campaigns often last for weeks, even months, with hygiene supplies running low. Persian commanders issue orders for communal washing whenever possible. Rivers, springs, even puddles after rain are pressed into service. Soldiers line up to splash faces and hands, passing around slivers of soap like prized coins. Weapons and armour are scrubbed too, not just for show, but to prevent rust and infection. The unofficial rule: a clean blade fights better. Illness can sweep through an army faster than an enemy charge, so latrines are dug carefully, always downhill from camp, with a stern warning never to drink from downstream water. Officers check for lice and fleas, even staging impromptu pest parades where the cleanest soldier gets extra rations. Some camps go so far as to burn infested clothing, a smoky affair that leaves everyone coughing, but hopefully less itchy. Even on the road, hygiene is about more than just survival. Rituals matter. Before important battles or crossings, soldiers wash hands and faces, share a drop of rosewater if any remains, and offer prayers for safe travels and clean victories. There's an old saying, the clean man walks farther. Whether it's superstition or subtle motivation, nobody dares skip the ritual, especially with so many eyes watching. By the time you reach the next caravanserai, you're dusty, footsore, and more grateful than ever for even the simplest washing bowl. As you scrub your hands under the stars, you realize that even far from home, Persian hygiene endures, an anchor of comfort, community, and on lucky nights, the sweet scent of rosewater carried by the wind. You wake to the low hum of morning voices and the sharp scent of herbs as you find yourself inside a Persian sick room, the air heavy with both hope and anxiety. Medical cleanliness in ancient Persia is as much ritual as it is science, a careful dance between faith, folklore, and a surprisingly sophisticated understanding of what keeps people alive, or at least what keeps infections at bay. If you thought your last doctor's visit was full of strange questions, imagine explaining to a Persian healer why you didn't pray over your wounds. In this small room, sunlight filters through lattice windows, illuminating baskets of dried mint, garlic, and mysterious root. The patient is stretched out on a linen mat, and the healer hovers, washing hands with a mix of vinegar and rosewater. Mainstream historical fact: Persian physicians, especially in the great academies like Gondishapur, were renowned for their attention to hygiene, often insisting on clean hands, washed tools, and even fresh bandages, a rarity in much of the ancient world. Tools such as bronze scalpels, bone needles, and tweezers are kept in jars of wine or vinegar between uses. The sharp, almost biting scent stings your nose, but you realize this is ancient Persia's answer to sterilization. When it's time for minor surgery, lancing a boil or cleaning a wound, the instruments are passed through a flame or dunked in astringent wine.
Does it work?
Historians still argue whether these methods genuinely killed infection, or just made patients braver by way of distraction. Still, patients who survive often credit the healer's careful cleanliness as much as any herbal remedy. Herbal medicine is everywhere. Poultices of garlic and honey are smeared on cuts. Salves made from pomegranate bark or myrrh soothe burns and bites. You see a healer reciting prayers as she wraps a wound, invoking the protective spirits alongside her herbal skills. The lines between science and spirituality blur, but the results are undeniable. One fringe tidbit: some healers insist on burning dried rue in the sick room, claiming it keeps away evil winds that carry disease. Others swear by fumigating sickbeds with frankincense, which incidentally leaves everyone's sheets smelling faintly divine. Patients themselves have a role to play. Before being treated, you're often expected to wash face, hands, even feet if you're able. If you're bedridden, family members gently dab your skin with warm, scented water, both to comfort and to cleanse. Children are coached to rinse their mouths and keep fingernails tidy, lest an errant germ find its way inside. Some Persian families believe in bathing the sick before each new moon, a practice whose roots are lost to time. Historians still debate whether this custom sped recovery, or just lifted everyone's spirits for a few hours. Cleanliness extends to the environment. Sick rooms are swept daily, with fresh straw or linen mats laid out and windows opened whenever possible. Bowls and cups are washed in running water, never reused for other patients unless thoroughly cleansed. Healers are quick to quarantine the truly ill, setting up separate rooms or tents outside the home to keep the bad air from spreading. You can't help but notice the early echoes of what modern medicine calls infection control. Of course, not every remedy is so clinical. Some Persians trust in charms or amulets for protection, wearing tiny bags of herbs around the neck, or tying coloured threads to the bedposts. Others leave bread or sweets at the door, as an offering to appease the spirits. If you wake to find a honey cake under your pillow, don't eat it. It's meant for the household guardian, not for midnight snacks. Medical practitioners come in many forms. Learned doctors in cities, wise women in villages, travelling herbalists who combine practical care with poetry and prayers. There's a gentle rivalry between them, each claiming their way is best. The debates, sometimes friendly, sometimes fierce, usually end with a shared cup of cooling mint water, and the exchange of new recipes for healing salves. Then there's the communal side of care. Friends and family flock to the bedside, offering help, comfort, and inevitably plenty of advice. A recovering patient is often gifted clean clothes, a scented scarf, or a vial of rosewater tokens of renewed health and communal celebration. To be clean is to be strong, an old saying goes, and here in this blend of medicine, magic, and affection, you start to believe it. As you leave the sick room, you catch the lingering aroma of garlic, honey, and smouldering rue. The patient sleeps peacefully, surrounded by family, faith, and the quiet triumph of Persian cleanliness, proof that even in illness there is care, dignity, and hope. You slip quietly into the women's quarters, drawn by the faint clink of glass jars and the gentle rush of laughter echoing down cool corridors. In ancient Persia, the realm of women is a place of hidden artistry, fierce practicality, and perhaps above all, legendary beauty routines. Hygiene here isn't just about ritual, it's an intricate dance of self-care, social expectation, and family tradition, passed from grandmother to granddaughter, like the world's most precious secret.
Step lightly, you're about to witness the original beauty influencers at work. Morning starts early. The first rays of sunlight find women rinsing their faces with rosewater or orange blossom, their hands deft from years of practice. Cleanliness is both a duty and a pleasure. Young girls line up for hair braiding sessions, their mothers weaving in sprigs of mint or sweet basil, believed to bring luck and fragrance. The older women, meanwhile, set out bowls of barley flour, yogurt, and honey, ingredients destined for breakfast, or, with a little alchemy, a face mask that leaves skin soft as silk. Mainstream historical fact: Persian women's beauty routines, blending herbal science with ritual, became legendary even beyond the empire's borders, inspiring courtly trends in Byzantium and Mughal India. Bathing is a communal affair. On certain days, the household heads to a private hammam, less public, more intimate, and filled with stories, advice, and more than a little gossip. Here, soap made from olive oil and wild herbs is lathered, massaged, and rinsed with endless patience. Arms are scrubbed, feet exfoliated, and laughter bubbles up with the steam. The women share tips for keeping skin smooth in the desert air, almond oil for sun, pomegranate peel for blemishes, cucumber to soothe a sunburn. If you listen closely, you'll catch the fringiest tidbit. The story of a princess whose secret for glossy hair was rinsing it in leftover wine. Was it effective or just a way to avoid chores? Historians still argue. Makeup is subtle but essential. Kohl lines the eyes, protecting from glare and, some say, warding off evil spirits.
Cheeks are flushed with a dab of mulberry juice or crushed rose petals. There's friendly debate over eyebrows. Some prefer one graceful arch, others lean into a bolder, unified look, the famous Persian monobrow. Beauty standards shift over the years, but one thing remains constant. A well-groomed appearance is a sign of pride and respect for the household. Hygiene for women isn't all glamour. Practical matters, like menstruation, are handled with a mix of discretion and ingenuity. Linen pads are washed and sun-dried, always kept separate from other laundry. Special herbal infusions are brewed to ease cramps or discomfort. Some households keep a calendar of clean days, ensuring that bathing and fresh clothing are available when needed most. It's not just about comfort, it's about dignity and health. Elders tell stories of how keeping clean during difficult times is a sign of inner strength, a lesson echoed by mothers everywhere. Childbirth is another moment where hygiene takes centre stage. Midwives arrive with baskets of clean linen, oils and sharp-smelling herbs, everything scrubbed, boiled and blessed. Afterwards, new mothers are pampered with baths, massages and plenty of rest. Visitors bring gifts of perfume, ointments and soft fabrics, all meant to help mother and child recover in peace. Clean beginnings make strong children, goes an old saying. In quiet moments, women teach each other the little tricks, how to make rose water from fallen petals, how to blend a sun cream from almond oil and flour, how to freshen clothes with a sprinkle of myrtle. There's a secret joy in these routines, a pride in knowledge passed through generations. If you ever wondered how ancient Persia's women looked so poised in all those palace carvings, now you know. Hours of care, laughter, and maybe a little healthy competition.
Historians still argue about some of the more elaborate rituals. Did queens really bathe in saffron-infused milk? Or is that poetic license? Was it rose petals in the hair? Or was that reserved for brides? For every visitor, ancient or modern, agrees. The Persian women's quarters are a world where beauty and hygiene are both daily art and quiet rebellion.
As you leave, the scent of rose and mint trails behind, mingling with laughter and the promise of secrets still to be learned. In the world of ancient Persia, a woman's hygiene is her pride, her power, and sometimes her greatest joy. You step into the sunlit courtyard, where the air is alive with the shouts of children darting between pillars, and elders sitting in clusters, wrapped in linen shawls, and trading stories as old as the empire itself. If hygiene is a Persian obsession, it's an all-ages affair, and in this bustling home, everyone plays their part. From the youngest tot to the wisest grandparent, keeping clean isn't just a chore, it's a rite of passage, a mark of respect, and occasionally a battlefield of wills. Children, naturally, approach hygiene with a mix of curiosity, rebellion, and a love for making as much mess as possible. Morning begins with a round of hand and face washing, usually accompanied by playful splashing, singing, and the occasional water fight. The classic trick: if you can wash your hands without getting your sleeves wet, you're considered a real grown-up. Mainstream historical fact: Persian children, like their counterparts elsewhere in the ancient world, were introduced to basic hygiene, hand-washing, tooth cleaning, clean clothing, almost as soon as they could walk. But in Persia, the routines are laced with stories and gentle superstitions. Wash your hands before sunrise, an elder might say, and you'll have good dreams tonight. Potty training is, let's just say, an adventure. Instead of plastic potties, there are chamber pots of glazed clay or stone, emptied promptly and cleaned with sand, ash, or, if you're lucky, a bit of leftover soap. Youngsters are praised for every milestone, though there's plenty of laughter at accidents. After all, even the Shah's grandson missed the pot once, as the saying goes. A quirky tidbit: some families set aside a special lucky stone believed to help toddlers master their aim. Historians still argue whether this was effective or just a creative distraction for anxious parents. For older children, chores often involve helping with laundry, running water, or picking herbs for homemade soaps. It's a way to learn the ropes, and perhaps more importantly, to keep them out of trouble. There's always a watchful eye, a mother, an aunt, or that ever-vigilant grandmother, ready to swoop in and correct sloppy scrubbing or lazy hair combing. But there's pride too when a child learns to braid their hair neatly, or to wash a tunic so white it dazzles in the sun. Teenagers, naturally, push boundaries. They experiment with perfumes, sometimes too enthusiastically, copy older siblings' makeup routines, or, if boys, attempt their first beard oil blend. Secret competitions abound. Whose hands are softest, whose hair shines brightest, who can wear the cleanest robe on festival day. And if someone's hygiene slips, expect a gentle but pointed joke. Careful, the rosewater vendor might come looking for you.
The elders of the household, meanwhile, are revered for their wisdom and their unwavering commitment to cleanliness. You see them inspecting children's ears, fingernails, and even behind the knees. No nook left unchecked.
Their routines are slower, more deliberate. Warm water baths, gentle herbal rubs for tired joints, and careful brushing of thinning hair. They might insist on changing linens every few days, a habit that historians still argue helped keep illness at bay in multi-generational Persian homes. But elders are more than just hygiene enforcers. They're the keepers of tradition, the ones who remember old remedies and the meaning behind every ritual. They pass down stories of the first bath in the spring, of festival days where children wore new tunics and splashed in the fountains, of times when clean water was a blessing to be shared. Sometimes, when the evening settles, you'll find an old grandfather telling a circle of rapt youngsters the story of the Soap King, the legendary merchant who claimed his secret recipe could make even a donkey sparkle. Perhaps the best kept secret of Persian hygiene is its sense of togetherness. In these communal routines, children learn not just to keep themselves clean, but to help others, washing a baby brother's hands, helping a grandmother braid her hair, carrying water for a tired neighbor.
Every age has a role, and in the end, the house runs on a delicate balance of discipline, affection, and a healthy sense of humor. So, as you sit among the laughter and bustle, you realize, in ancient Persia, cleanliness is not just about the individual, it's the heart of family life, a daily act of love that binds each generation together.
Dusk settles over the rooftops as a hush falls through the household, and a new kind of ritual takes shape. One less about dirt and dust, more about unseen boundaries and spiritual balance. You're about to witness the mysterious world of ritual impurity and cleansing rites, where the everyday acts of washing hands and scrubbing floors transform into profound moments of cosmic significance. In ancient Persia, hygiene isn't just skin deep. It's the front line in an invisible war between purity and pollution, order and chaos. It all starts with a concept as old as Zoroastrianism itself, that certain things, actions, and even people can become ritually. Maybe you brushed up against a corpse, touched a sick animal, or simply had a terrible nightmare. Each scenario has its own elaborate solution. Mainstream historical fact: Zoroastrian purity laws were among the most detailed of the ancient world, prescribing everything from hand-washing after a sneeze to multi-day cleansing rites after a death in the family. These laws weren't just superstition, they shaped architecture, daily schedules, and even government edicts, creating a culture where everyone, rich or poor, became an expert in spiritual spring cleaning. If you accidentally touch something impure, and let's face it, who hasn't? The first step is always washing hands, arms, sometimes your entire body. The Barashnum rite, reserved for the most serious cases, involves washing the whole body with special clay, 9 times in a set order, at specific places, blessed by a priest. The process is so intricate that people joke only a calendar maker could keep track of every step.
Historians still argue whether these elaborate cleansings were invented by priests to keep busy or whether they genuinely improved public health. Animals, too, play their part. Certain creatures, like dogs, are considered sacred protectors and must be kept especially clean, while others, unclean animals like lizards or insects, require special rituals if they're found in the house.
There's a running joke about the mouse that ruined a feast, where a banquet is halted and half the guests end up outside, washing in the moonlight, muttering prayers about chaos and order. The most dramatic cleansings happen after death. When someone passes away, the entire living space is purified. Floors scrubbed, windows open to let the bad out, and every object touched by the deceased is washed or set aside for days. Family members are sometimes restricted from religious ceremonies until they've completed their cleansing, and priests perform rites to seal the home against wandering spirits. One fringe tidbit: some communities sprinkle powdered sulfur in the corners of the house to drive away impure winds. Whether this is science or superstition, you can still smell the sting days later. But ritual impurity isn't always about disaster. Everyday life is full of small, almost comforting acts of purification. People recite prayers while washing, sprinkle a drop of rose water on their feet before entering a temple, and burn juniper in the garden to freshen the air. Children learn to touch their forehead and say a blessing if they accidentally break a pot, hoping to clean up their luck along with the mess. Cleansing rites even shape Persian celebrations. Before weddings, brides and grooms undergo ritual baths, sometimes with music, flowers, and laughter, to start married life clean in every sense. At the new year, families scrub their homes from top to bottom, dust off old grievances, and pour water across the threshold, symbolically washing away the past. Historians still debate how much of this was religious law versus age-old human instinct. But in Persia, there's rarely a clear line between the two. Despite all the rules, there's a certain joy to these rituals. They offer reassurance, a sense that no matter how chaotic life becomes, you can always restore order inside and out. If you ever forget a step, don't worry. There's always an aunt or neighbour nearby, ready to correct your technique and remind you with a wink. Better 100 washings than one bad omen. So you finish the day not just physically clean, but spiritually refreshed. A sense of lightness that lingers long after the water dries from your skin. In ancient Persia, the art of purification is as vital as breath, a daily defense against the little stains and great storms that life throws your way. The night deepens, and a gentle breeze stirs the scents of rosewater, bread and dust in the Persian city streets. By lamplight, you notice how even the bustling metropolis is shaped by the ancient obsession with cleanliness. Urban sanitation is as crucial to empire as any palace or treasury. In the heart of Persepolis, Susa or Ecbatana, a quiet army wages war on filth. Welcome to the world of Persian city hygiene, where staying clean means thinking big. How to keep thousands of people, animals, and their waste from turning a city into a swamp. Step carefully because city planners were ahead of their time. Streets are angled for drainage, alleys swept daily, and public spaces lined with pits for refuse. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Archaeologists have found evidence of organized waste disposal in Persian cities, including covered drains and separate zones for butchers, tanners, and other messy trades. This early urban zoning helped keep the air sweet and the marketplaces thriving. Historians still argue whether these innovations were borrowed from Babylonians, invented in-house, or the inevitable result of generations of grandmothers who simply refused to put up with stinky neighbours. The public attitude toward filth is refreshingly direct. It's not uncommon to see shopkeepers dousing their doorsteps with water, then sweeping the dust into the street's central gutter. Markets come alive each morning, with vendors shouting and city workers clearing out piles of yesterday's waste. Sweeping is more than just a chore. It's a ritual, one that ends with a splash of rosewater or a pinch of dried mint to chase away lingering odours. There's a joke that you're not a real citizen until you've been scolded for leaving a muddy footprint on someone's freshly washed floor. Refuse is gathered into clay jars or woven baskets, then hauled to city outskirts or dumped in designated pits. In richer homes, servants are assigned to make sure that every scrap of leftover food, animal dung, and even old laundry water finds its proper place. The city's scavengers, dogs, goats, and clever birds play their part too, cleaning up bits and pieces before official collection crews arrive. Some historians suggest that street cleaning animals were as valuable as the most loyal guard dog, though neighbours may have disagreed about their fragrance. Sewage is the city's biggest headache and greatest source of innovation. Covered drains and soak pits whisk waste away from living areas, while large homes and palaces often feature private latrines, simple benches over clay-lined holes with sand or ash tossed in after each use. Public latrines exist too, tucked away in corners, and while you wouldn't exactly call them glamorous, they're a leap ahead of many other ancient civilizations. Fringe tidbit: in some neighborhoods, it's said the best gossip can be overheard at the public latrine. Just don't repeat what you hear, or you might be stuck on trash duty for a week. Urban sanitation is also about prevention. Before big festivals or royal visits, teams of workers wash streets, repaint doors, and hang garlands of herbs and flowers to keep the city smelling sweet. Children compete to see who can gather the most swept-up dust, earning small coins or tasty snacks. And there's an unspoken contest among households. Whoever keeps the cleanest street section wins neighborhood bragging rights until the next dust storm. Even water supplies are fiercely guarded. Wells are capped at night. Communal fountains are scrubbed weekly, and woe to anyone caught polluting the public stream. Punishment can be as simple as public shaming, or as serious as a hefty fine. Water is life, say the elders, but clean water is the future.
Historians still debate whether Persian city hygiene truly prevented plagues, but they agree that the cities outlasted many rivals for one reason: relentless, almost joyful cleanliness. It's not all perfect, of course. During floods or droughts, the system is tested.
Some years, the city smells like paradise, others a little less so. But as you stroll the streets at night, watching lanterns flicker over swept stones and hearing the soft splash of water from a courtyard, you realize cleanliness in Persia isn't just a matter of rules. It's a living, breathing part of daily city life, woven into every brick and alley. So you tuck your feet up, lean against a cool stone wall, and let the soft, clean air wash over you. For tonight at least, the city feels as fresh as a garden after rain. Morning returns to Persia, and with it, the anticipation of celebration. The scent of fresh bread mingles with wood smoke and rosewater as households begin their preparations for festival days, occasions where hygiene isn't just a daily habit, but a dazzling communal ritual. From the smallest village to the halls of the great king himself, every corner of the empire comes alive with routines designed to wash away the past and welcome the new. If you think spring cleaning is intense in your household, wait until you see what Persians do for rules, or any of their sacred festivals. Festivals begin with a grand sweep. Literally, every home, courtyard, and street is scrubbed top to bottom. Windows are thrown open, rugs are beaten, until dust dances in the air, and children are sent running with brooms to every nook and cranny. One mainstream historical fact: Nowruz, the Persian New Year, is famously associated with Khane Tekhani, house shaking, a tradition of deep cleaning and renewal that predates many modern spring cleaning customs. The belief is simple and profound. To enter the new year, or any new beginning, you must shed every speck of the old. But it's not just homes that get the spa treatment. Public fountains are polished and decorated with flowers. Streets are sprinkled with rosewater or myrtle. And shopkeepers hang garlands of fresh herbs above their doors. Some cities host cleansing parades where children, dressed in new linen tunics, carry basins of water and branches of green wheat, symbolically splashing away bad luck and bringing blessings for the coming months. If you happen to be out early, you'll hear neighbours calling to each other, "May your house be as clean as your heart." Personal hygiene reaches its glamorous peak. Everyone, young, old, noble and humble, washes head to toe, donning their freshest clothes and brushing hair until it gleams. Special bathhouses open before dawn. Filled with laughter, gossip, and the scent of rose oil, women gather to apply henna to hands and feet, and even the gruffest uncles submit to a perfumed beard oil, lest they offend the spirits or, more importantly, their in-laws. There's a friendly competition over who can look the most radiant, a festival beauty contest, Persian style. Meals, too, become an exercise in cleanliness and order. Tablecloths are scrubbed, dishes are polished to a mirror shine, and even the most rambunctious children wash hands before every course. Cooks are meticulous, rinsing herbs and vegetables in fresh water, and the best dishes are set aside for guests. There's a running joke that if your onions aren't peeled with clean hands on a ruse, the year will be full of tears. Some families even burn incense or dried herbs near the kitchen door to keep away bad air while cooking for a crowd. Ritual purity plays a key role in festival traditions. Before certain ceremonies, everyone washes their hands and faces, and in some regions a symbolic bathing of the hands is performed in front of the community. Water is splashed across thresholds and doorways, and rose petals are scattered in baths. If you think these customs are just for show, think again. Historians still argue whether these festival cleansings were originally health measures, spiritual preparations, or both. One fringe tidbit: in a few rural regions, the night before a major festival is spent bathing under the moon. Neighbours gather at a riverbank or spring, singing songs and pouring water over one another in a noisy, joyful scene. It's said that those who skip the moonlit bath will have a year of bad luck, though the real risk is just missing out on the fun. Throughout every celebration, the theme is the same: renewal, togetherness, and the belief that a clean start is the best kind. Children play with soap bubbles in the street, elders trade herbal remedies for stubborn stains, and everyone leaves the house a little lighter, fresher, and perhaps a bit prouder of their home and their place in the world. As the festival winds down, you slip into your cleanest tunic, skin tingling from a day of ritual baths and laughter, and step out into the night, surrounded by a city that feels as if it's just been born. The final rays of sunlight slip behind the mountains, and ancient Persia sighs with the hush of evening. You find yourself looking back, not just at a day, but at centuries of ritual, habit, and ingenuity, a legacy of hygiene practices that shaped an empire and in quiet ways shaped the world. Tonight, as you stretch out beneath the stars, you begin to notice the subtle echoes of Persian cleanliness in places you'd never expect. Persia's attention to cleanliness is more than just personal pride. It's a social contract. Communities across the empire learned early on that staying healthy meant thinking of others, sharing water, keeping public spaces clean, and teaching each new generation the habits that held families together. Here's your mainstream historical fact. As the Persian Empire expanded, its hygiene customs travelled with it, blending into and influencing the traditions of Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and even faraway lands along the Silk Road. Some of these influences are obvious. Roman bathhouses. The Persians had their hammamans first, and Roman architects openly admired their heating systems, water management, and the ritual of scrubbing body and soul. Arab physicians, too, borrowed from Persian medical treatises on hygiene and healing, spreading those ideas far and wide.
Even today, the Persian habit of hand-washing before meals, scenting clothes with rosewater, or celebrating a clean start of the new year lingers in homes from Istanbul to Delhi.
Of course, not every practice survived unchanged. Soap recipes shifted, perfumes evolved, and debates about the best method of washing never really ended. Ask 3 people in the bazaar and you'll get 5 opinions, plus a recipe for a new herbal scrub. Historians still argue over which innovations began with the Persians, and which they simply perfected. But one thing is clear: the empire's respect for cleanliness left an indelible mark. The quirky and the grand live side by side in this legacy. From the inventive use of clay and vinegar in daily routines, to the spectacle of public cleaning festivals and purification rites, Persia's hygiene practices reveal a society that found meaning and even joy in everyday acts of care. There's a certain humility and humour here too, the willingness to laugh at a muddy tunic, swap recipes for soap, or chase a goat out of the clean laundry. If you ever doubted that something as simple as washing your hands could hold the world together, the Persians would kindly and perhaps a little smugly disagree. And so, as you take in the calm of a city that hums with quiet pride, you realize the real power of Persian hygiene was never just about dirt or disease. It was about belonging, about hope, and about giving each new day a fresh, shining start. Now, as the day slips into night and all of Persia grows still, you settle into a gentle hush, letting the soft chorus of distant fountains and the faint scent of rosewater drift around you. The world slows. The air, now cool and serene, feels softer against your skin. Every memory of the day, bright mornings, bustling baths, laughter beneath the moonlight, begins to blur at the edges, fading into the calm of a well-earned rest. Let your breathing match the slow, measured rhythm of the desert night. With each inhale, imagine the gentle splash of water in a stone basin, the soothing brush of oil on your arms, the sound of linen rustling in the evening breeze. Exhale, and feel the worries of the world slide quietly away, carried off like dust in a cleansing wind. You are safe, wrapped in the traditions and gentle rituals of a people who understood, more than most, the comfort of simple daily acts. If your thoughts wander, let them drift to the quiet courtyards, the laughter at the washing fountain, the secret smile of a child slipping into a freshly laundered tunic. Picture the golden lamplight flickering across a swept floor, the hush of a family gathering to wash before a meal, the subtle promise that tomorrow will be just a bit brighter, a bit cleaner than today. As you let yourself sink deeper into the soft darkness, trust that you've carried with you a piece of Persia's peace, a sense that no matter how chaotic the world may seem, there is always calm to be found in the rituals of care. Tonight, let every gentle memory lull you further until sleep folds you in its soft embrace.